Hey man, in today's video, I'm going to be responding to a comment that I received on the channel that I think is applicable for a lot of you. It's from a young man. Actually, he's my age, but he's asking an important question. He's in a circumstance that I think a lot of us find ourselves in at one point or another. And so let me just get into it, and you can let me know your thoughts in the comments and how you'd respond to this as well. So let me just read it to give you context to what he's talking about here. I'm going to express my frustration. That is it. I'm a 25-year-old young man looking for a wife the old way, and it's been hard. I want a wife, but everyone at my church are older women and families. The younger generation doesn't show up to this kind of church. It's smaller, and I like it that way. I will never use a useless dating app. I'm an engineer that works heavy hours. I have no clue where to look, and I hate the when you least expect it talk. I don't know where to find a good young woman at. I really want to be a father soon. It's been a lifelong dream of mine, and I want to be in the best shape I can be for them, which I feel is now. But the Lord has his timing, and I must wait. I go to all of our work events, some things on weekends, but I feel like all the good women and men are cautious now. So much so they are hidden in plain sight. I just need a general point in the right direction. I want to be a good husband to a good woman, but in my frustration, I will stay obedient to the Lord's plan. Here's the first thing I need to say, and I don't think this is talked about enough. There was a period of time in Christian thought, I'm going to say, Christian blogging, Christian content over the last 20 years or so that has really elevated singleness to a place of privilege and blessing. It's something that, married people look on with so much fondness, and they're really encouraging the singles, it's such an amazing time you're at and don't waste it and all these kind of things. And there was so much emphasis put on this idea that singleness is a blessing, that for those who were experiencing singleness, unwanted singleness, they were being disillusioned. It was a disconnect there. They're being told this is this wonderful thing that, God has blessed you with, and yet you have this desire to have a wife and to have a family and to not just, not for selfish reasons, but you want to lead them. You want to, work for them. You want to provide for them and protect them. And these are all good desires. And yet you're being told, no, man, it's a blessing that you're single. I just want to put that out in the open and say, I think that is wrong. And I'll tell you how it's wrong, okay? Yes, is every trial we receive from God a blessing? Yeah, it is. But it's still a trial, okay? And I'm willing to say that unwanted singleness is a trial. Is it a blessing? Sure, just as all trials are blessings, but it's still a trial. It's still something hard that you have to experience. And so we can have compassion for you. Like I was there. And it's hard for me even now to be able to, put myself in that place because I am married now, right? And as much as I want to say, hey, I'm right there with you, I'm not. Right. And as you looking at me, it would be wrong for me to say I'm experiencing the same trial that you've experienced because I'm not. OK, but in that place in time, a few years ago, 23 years old, 24 years old, wanting to be in a relationship, wanting to have a wife, feeling all that anxiety and feeling like time is running out in a sense. Man, it's not a fun place to be. And having people tell you, hey, when you least expect it, that's when it'll all happen for you. I resonate with that. That doesn't feel like a good thing to say. And I've made numerous videos about all the dumb things that people will say to single people, single men, and it's like there's a lot of dumb things. There's this holier than thou complex that once you've mastered, manhood, essentially, that God will bring you this woman. And that is your reward. The relationship is your reward. Friends, a relationship is not a reward. A relationship is not a reward. A relationship is something that happens. Two people come together. A relationship would be a reward if the woman was just an object. The woman is not an object, okay? It's not something that God just gives you because you've done enough good stuff. Throw that out of your mind. That is a lie from the pit of hell because it drives men into this place of thinking that they either haven't done enough or that God has completely left them and that he hasn't fulfilled on his promises. A relationship is not a reward. With that being said, here's the thing, some practical advice that I would give. The first thing truly is you talk about wanting to meet a woman in the old way, right? You don't want to go on dating apps. You want to just meet her in a good way, a wholesome way. And that's a great desire, right? That's a wonderful desire. With that desire, you need to understand, and I think you do understand, is that that takes patience. That takes waiting, because our society is not set up in such a way to promote that kind of meeting people, right? You don't have matchmakers. You don't have the ladies of the church trying to, set different peoples up. Maybe you do at your church, but that definitely wasn't a thing for me back in the day. And it's like, hey, society is not set up for this kind of thing. So it's going to take more time. It's going to take more intentionality. The other piece to this, and this is just a suggestion, this is just something to kind of prick you a little bit to see what you think about this. Okay. You mentioned that I think you said you were an engineer and you work long hours. Okay. I want to just ask you, what would it look like for you to withdraw some of those hours, to take some less hours? And there's a place for saving up. And I want you to be in a good financial position when you do ultimately meet that woman. And that's good. That's responsible, utilizing your time. But what if you were to pull back some, to give yourself more opportunities to meet people, participate in more church events? You can coordinate some of your own events where you can get your friends and they can bring their friends, and you can have some social gatherings that way. What would it look like? And maybe you say, no, I can't change up my life. I don't want to change up my life for this type of thing. Then I want you to ask seriously, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? If you don't want to change up the way you're living your life, then I would reckon to guess you don't want it that bad. Here's the thing. If you want to be in a relationship, there are things in your life that you're going to need to change, unless you're a perfect man. And if in that case, hey man, way to go. But for me, it was, okay, I need to become more open. No, I need to not just be in my own friendship circles. I need to expand myself. I need to talk to people that maybe I would never talk to before. I need to go to different things that maybe would push me outside of my social comfort zone, but I need to, because this matters to me. I think there's a temptation in wanting everything to just come to us and for us to not have to change anything about our life, and for it to just happen. And I was there too. I can remember this kind of mentality, thinking that, if I just kind of hunker down and work really, really hard, things will just happen. Things will just fall into place. But then where did I end up? Well, I was in a season where I was similar to this young man. I didn't have anybody at my church that I even was in the same age range as me. I was like, hey, there's no possibilities here. There's nobody I'm interested in. And it doesn't feel like there's any opportunities to meet people that I could even develop any kind of, let alone a relationship, but a friendship with. And so what was I going to do? I had to change up my life. And so some of the things that I did, and these things all proved to be, maybe somewhat unsuccessful depending on your expectations, because I ended up meeting my wife, years later. But I started different young adult fellowship groups. I just invited people to the park to bring some food and to hang out and play some games, and friends of friends would invite each other. And it just became this thing. And we did that for a few months and a few years, actually. And I did another thing kind of very similar to that, where, hey, invite your friends, and kind of a Christian fellowship gathering where it was wholesome and people came together of the same mindsets. Because, hey, at the end of the day, you don't want to get so desperate that you start looking for your woman, in places that she wouldn't be. She wouldn't be in a bar. She wouldn't be in the club. That's not the type of woman that you're looking for. So don't look for her there. Look in places that reflect the values that matter to you. Now, this is the piece of the video for young women, if you're watching this. Now, I know of quite a few young women that kind of want to be in a relationship. They want to find a good, godly young man. And yet it feels like, similar to how this young man feels like there's no good women out there, these women feel like there are no good men out there. And I know for a matter of fact that there are good men out there. There are young men watching, my channel, Men on Mission, that they're committed to the Lord. They're committed to growing in their faith. And yet they're like, man, it's like, where are all the young women? And so there's this disconnect. Here's what I've identified from some young men and things that make it difficult for young men to approach young women, okay? One of the big things is, especially at church or social gatherings, is women tend to, and this is just them by nature, right? And men do this too to a degree, is they want to be in their single circle. The single circle of young women, all these single young women, they're all going to talk in a circle. And for a young man that wants to or is interested in asking somebody out, it's really intimidating to go up and be like, can I break up your little circle here? And can I talk to, Diane or whatever her name is, or Elizabeth? It's like that all of a sudden draws so much attention, so much pressure, and people start gossiping and whispering and all this kind of thing. It's not cool. Okay. Here's what I would I would ask of you, if you're a young woman and you want to be in a relationship, make yourself more available. Make yourself more available for conversation, for interaction, for friendship, for fellowship. Like, make yourself more available. I think there's a tendency to become very insulated depending on what community you're part of, especially the community I grew up in, the Christian homeschool community, to be very insulated, to not allow yourself to have conversations even with people of the opposite sex, when it's like, hey, if you want to be married, if you want to be in a relationship, that's something that needs to happen. And I'm not trying to be condescending, but I'm trying to say, hey, like, allow yourself to maybe step outside your own friendship group, this pocket of security, because it's comfortable, it's safe. But talk to some other people. Talk to the young man across from the next pew in front of you. And for young men watching this, guys, hey, don't let that circle of women discourage you or intimidate you. Be bold. Be bold. One of the things that I've seen that men struggle with in general is just being communicative in their intentions. Okay, if you are interested in a girl, just tell her, hey, I'm interested in you. Would you like to go out on a date? Would you like to, have coffee? Would you like to get to know each other a little bit better? It's because in that context, we're exposing ourselves to rejection, which is something that we do not want to do. Obviously, that's scary. That sucks. That makes us feel vulnerable, and we don't want to feel vulnerable as a man. So we'd rather, play little games with her heart until she finally, develops feelings, and then she is forced to pursue us. That's not God's way. That's not what God wants us to do as young men. No, we ought to be the one initiating, communicating, being vulnerable, putting ourselves out there, because that's the first sign to a woman that you are courageous. Why would you want to start off your relationship showing yourself to be a coward? That makes no sense whatsoever. I understand if you're in a situation where it feels like, hey man, there's nobody that I'm interested in. There's nobody my age. And I know different people have different thoughts about that. It's like, maybe you should change churches, or maybe you should change jobs, or change cities even. People will go to great extents. They'll go to different countries in order to, meet somebody. People go, to far and beyond to meet someone. And so I'm not necessarily telling you to do any of that, really. I don't necessarily think that switching churches is a really healthy thing to do if you're just looking for a woman. Maybe visiting some different churches might be a good idea. Maybe visiting some different places, partnering with some different organizations. That's part of how I met my wife, was through volunteering with an organization in the city. And so these things may be fruitful. They might not be. Ultimately, God is sovereign, and you have a good perspective here that ultimately it is God who's going to bring you your wife, and it's his timing. And yes, he uses the means of action. And so you should be intentional about how you're living your life, and maybe changing some things is important, and it is going to be necessary. But at the end of the day, having peace to know that you're not less of a man or less of a woman if you're not married. You're not less of a person if you don't have another person next to you, because it is in God that we are made whole. It is in God that we are made whole, that we are satisfied. And if we're looking for a future partner or spouse to satisfy us, to bring us that sense of wholeness, we're starting that relationship in the wrong place, asking for that spouse, that future spouse, who maybe we don't even know, to fulfill desires that they could never fulfill. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, I'd ask you to subscribe, because I'm putting out new videos all the time, encouraging men to lead and love like Jesus. If that's a mission you want to get behind, I'd encourage you to support on Patreon as well, that we can continue this mission going. And until next time, keep pursuing the mission.